Hey, all my Crimsonites, and welcome to the Crimson Cure channel, where we embrace our femininity, increase our womanly value, and celebrate our brothers. So join me on our feminine journey to learn, heal, and grow. Hey there, my Crimsonites, and welcome to the Crimson Cure channel. I'm your hostess, femininity coach, and author of the Crimson Cure, and this is my perspective. So here's a clip of Tarana Burke, which is the founder of the Me Too movement. You know, she started that hashtag years ago, Me Too, and it became a movement. But she's here to explain what she always meant by Me Too and why she doesn't believe in she denies ever having said believe all women, and why she doesn't support that concept. So I'm gonna let her speak.
Something and tell us what it means, because it's become a flashpoint phrase, slogan, whatever, that I think a lot of people either misunderstand or willfully misconstrue. When I say the term believe all women,
Nah. I'm so glad you asked that, because that, first of all, that phrase does not come from me or the Me Too movement.
Okay.
I do not subscribe to the phrase believe all women. That has been ascribed to me. I've never said it. I say believe survivors. As a Black woman, I would never, in America, I would never say believe all women. Ever. It's ridiculous. What we were saying in the beginning is believe survivors. The reason why we say believe survivors, and what that means is start from the premise that survivors are telling the truth.
I'm going to ask you to culturally translate.
Because for years, when survivors came forward, we were not believed. And if you start with the premise that survivors are telling the truth, that means that you will investigate thoroughly, right? And you will start and you will give them the space that you give a person that you believe, right? That means that you will say, okay, if I believe you, then I'm going to take you seriously. I'm going to go through all the proper channels to make sure you get the resources that you need, that you get the investigation you need. We didn't get that. If you don't believe me, you're going to dismiss me. You're going to try to undermine my story. You're going to try to bury me, right? All of those things. That's what you do for a person you don't believe. So when people say believe survivors, it doesn't even mean diminish the other person and demonize the other person. It means take me seriously. Believe me and take me seriously. That's what survivors are looking for when they say believe me. Now, believe all women is ridiculous. As a Black woman in America, believing all women means that I believe Emmett Till's white lady, right? I believe all these white women that try to undermine Black men. I would never, ever say believe all women. It's racist. It's so fraught with so many, it's so problematic. So you can't find me saying that anywhere, ever, in the history of me being a public figure. Ridiculous. As a Black woman in America, believing all women means that I believe Emmett Till's white lady, right? I believe all these white women that try to undermine.
Now, I actually agree more or less with her assessment of this. Believing survivors doesn't even mean the way in which she explained it. I understand that, right? Because when you have been a victim of any kind of SA, you want to say something to somebody that you believe either can listen to you or help you, or at least just let you say it to them without being dismissive. All that ain't happened to you. All shut up. You know, that ain't happened. You lying. This, that, and the third. If you start with the premise that somebody is saying this is something that happened to me, like she said, it allows for you to actually investigate it, because I'm a big proponent in investigating it. Because if it's a lie, it's going to be proved out. If it's the truth, it's going to be proved out. And usually SA is difficult to prove anyway. Even an actual grape is difficult to prove a lot of times. You know what I'm saying? Like that's difficult anyway. All forms of it, whether you're talking about male to female or female to male, it's difficult to prove that somebody is actually doing something against your will to you, right? Especially of a sexual nature, right? Because it can go from harassment, from to touching to, you know what I'm saying? And then you got to try to convince somebody that this person is actually doing this stuff. You don't want it done, and it's like somebody got to do something because, you know what I'm saying? So it's already a difficult thing. So people who actually have gone through some type of grape or something like that, or any type of essay in a life, it's shameful. You be feeling crazy that it happened. You be trying to figure out how did you let it happen, and there's a lot of self-blame that go on, a lot of shame surrounded it. And it's like, man, you know what I'm saying? Like, unless you a child, and even children sometimes have that feeling like, man, you know what I'm saying? Like, this happened to me, and maybe it is my fault that this happened. If somebody touched them and things of that nature. So it's a lot of shame that go around that whole entire situation. So it's already difficult enough for people who are telling the truth. And since we're talking about believe all women, let's take it to women. Even if a woman is telling the absolute truth that this is something that happened, like I said, number one, it's difficult to prove that in many cases. And number two, it's so shameful and it's difficult to even say it. So when you have false allegations, when you have women to weaponize, when you have women to come out and say that some man somewhere has done something to them and it's not true, nothing happened to them, or the man didn't do it, or they're falsely accusing someone and things of that nature, it makes it 10 times more difficult for a woman that actually went through it, because now we got to go back to almost like, nah, prove it, because so many of these other women have come out and their allegations have proven to be false. Men have lost their livelihood. Some men have lost their lives. Some men have lost their freedom off of the back of women weaponizing this very concept, right? So that's where my stance has always been personally. Like, this is why I have never liked any false allegations, because not only are innocent people losing things, off of the back of some lie that a woman told for whatever reason she told it, but also actual victims now can't be believed. Now there's no space for when it actually do happen. Now there's no space for it. There's no space and no grace given. You skeptical of every story, no matter how plausible it might be or how truthful it might sound. And I'm with her with believe all women is asinine. That's crazy, because we can't believe all women, specifically because of what I just said, the ability to weaponize allegations, right? The ability to go to somebody and say, yeah, this man, he did this and did that. We don't even have to go so far as to go into a grape, but just quote unquote sexually inappropriate behavior. We see it play out on social media and the news all the time, where you've got allegations here and there, whether the allegations is against celebrities or not. You know what I'm saying? People, a lot of times men have to lose their job, or they lose their reputation. Their reputation is marred because now people see them a certain way, even if they never get convicted of it, or it gets proven to be a lie in the first place. Right? So I'm more or less in agreement with her. Everybody's not telling the truth, but everybody ain't lying. And vice versa. Everybody ain't lying, but everybody ain't telling the truth either. So I've always been a big proponent of, let's investigate it. Let's just be fair. Let's not, you know, cast a person as guilty before we investigate the facts. You know, tell me the story from the top. You know, I want to hear every detail that you can remember, and we're going to piece this together and see if it makes sense. You know, then we can investigate. Then we can look at what this other person that's being accused, you know, what's going on with them. And then that way you can dispel it without the bias that of quote unquote believing all women. Well, she said it, so it must be true, which is where we are now, right? All in false allegations and believing all women and all of that. That's where we are. But before I go, I am gonna critique Tarana as well. The hashtag that she started, I didn't see nothing wrong with that. People coming out and saying, yeah, you know, that happened to me as well. That happened to me too when I was a child, or when I was this, or when I was that in this situation, man, that made me feel this way and that way. Expressing that, if you actually went through it and you had just expressing how it made you feel, I don't see nothing wrong with that. What I critique her for is when it took on another life with the whole Me Too, because a lot of foolishness was done under the banner of Me Too. And I don't never recall Miss Tarana Burke coming out and denouncing a lot of the foolishness. She allowed a lot of white women to come in and undercut whatever it was her intentions to do. And and women just in general turn that whole Me Too thing into a power grab. We saw a lot of women coming out under that Me Too banner, lying about what men have done. A lot of false allegations were made. I remember a couple of years ago, it was actually a bunch of white women. And I said it on a show. I said, oh, this is a coup that they're pulling using the Me Too thing, because it was a lot of these white women that was in corporate, and it was a big thing. Like a lot of CEOs had to step down and all of this type of stuff, because the women were saying that the CEOs had SA'd them and they was being inappropriate with them, only for the women to actually take higher positions in the companies. And I was like, oh, so they just removing men out of the way. And it's particularly, this was white women. And I said, you know, they really got that whole Me Too thing down to a science at this point. And the reason that I'm critiquing Tarana is because she sat back and didn't say nothing when all of that foolishness was going on under the Me Too banner. That's what I don't like. When did you say anything to take back, if that wasn't your intent and you wasn't okay with all of these men, black men and other men, you know, losing their livelihood, etc., etc. If you wasn't okay with these men having to go through these things under false allegations and so-called Me Too, then why you didn't say nothing? Why you didn't make a strong case and publicly and vehemently distance yourself from that and take your Me Too hashtag back and be like, I was not trying to weaponize this against men. I was just trying to give a space for women to say how they felt about past experiences. You know, I don't remember her really making a strong case about that. If she did, you know, my bad, but I don't remember her doing that. And like I said, a lot of foolishness was committed underneath the Me Too banner just as much as under the Believe All Women banner, which actually became it conflated, which is why people was attributing Believe All Women to her, because it became one and the same thing. So she's here now explaining what she thinks about it, which is fine. The explanation itself is fine. But, ma'am, you were the unfortunate face of Me Too. And yeah, a lot of men lost they, like I said, lost their reputation, lost their livelihoods, you know, behind all of that. Jump down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe to the channel if you have not. Once again, I'm your host, Sister Crimson Cure, and this was my perspective. Bye-bye, Crimsonites.